Good morning. My voice may fail me. If so, my partner and colleague who's sitting here will leap up and take over from me, but I'm going to give it a try. I want to begin just by glossing my title. The intersectionality that I have in mind brings together academic professionalism, professional prestige, and all the vetting procedures at the modern university, and fuses them with anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. The cloak in the subtitle that I'm referencing is pseudo-scholarship, cloaking these motivations and impulses with false scholarship, alternative truths, if you will. In October 2017, Duke University Press published a new book, The Right to Maim, by the Rutgers University Women's Studies professor Jasper Puar. She was already, safe to say, notorious among many in this audience because of her January 2016 lecture at Vassar College that was castigated for reviving ancient blood libel accusations in a contemporary form. In the intervening year or so, she'd become a celebrated figure on the U.S. radical left for much the same reason. The book, however, did not return to the Israeli organ transplant accusations that occupied a good deal of the pro-Israeli response to her lecture. Instead, it focused on her other key Vassar themes, among them her claim that Israel for years had stunted the growth of Palestinian children in Gaza and the West Bank by denying them access to adequate food. The children were supposedly being kept on something close to a starvation diet, allowed enough nutrition to survive, but not enough to remain healthy and enable normal growth. Other U.S. faculty, including Juan Cole, had made the same claim in op-eds, but Puar was the first to do so at length in a book chapter, and therefore to subject that book chapter and the rest of her book to peer review and publication by University Press. And certainly we would expect more of the fact-checking at Duke than, say, at the Electronic Intifada. However, it ain't so. Part of what I'm arguing here, and in my new book, Israel Denial, Anti-Zionism, Anti-Semitism, and the Faculty Campaign Against the Jewish State, published with assistance from AEN, is that we are wrong to invest more confidence in the anti-Zionist peer reviewing process at Duke, Minnesota, or California university presses than we do in the Electronic Intifada. The university presses, moreover, are part of a distinctive and far more professionally destructive phenomenon, what we might describe as academic stealth in plain sight. The process is almost entirely invisible to us, but its results in the form of published books and essays are altogether in plain sight, even heralded by publishers and award announcements. A fragment of the review process is often partly in display on at least some of the blurbs attached to publications. Some of the blurb writers are usually people who reviewed the manuscript and approved it. It's become, in the area of anti-Zionism, a circular, self-reinforcing publication process that produces what I'm persuaded is an academic, anti-Semitic echo chamber. However it developed over time, it's now thoroughly established, functional and in place. It's an impersonal and material system dedicated to adding prestige to the project of demonizing Israel, to elevate it to something we can admire because it's issued by a university press. The echo chamber reproduces a fixed ideology that claims originality and significance by observance of one principle only. Originality in this domain is tell us something bad about Israel that we didn't already know. That's what original research means. The people required to make the system functional include dedicated anti-Zionist editors and staff members, as well as reliably anti-Zionist readers and evaluators of manuscripts. Obviously, it took time to develop this twofold cadre of enablers, but they now exist. Meanwhile, university courses, public lectures, and the publication of new books and essays refresh the supply by recruiting new converts to the cause. So it's a self-generating circularity. I've concluded that the books and essays at stake are anti-Semitic for the following reasons that address common but not universal BDS views built into them. One, they share with many BDS advocates a conviction that Zionism is racist at its core, despite the movement's historical transformation and complexity. Two, they believe the very idea of a Jewish state is illegitimate and that Israel thus has no right to exist. Three, they object to the founding of the Jewish state in 1948, not just to the military occupation of the West Bank. Four, they assert that normal relationships with any Israeli institutions or organizations that fail to condemn Israeli policy are unacceptable. Five, they dismiss the right 6.5 million Israeli Jews have to political self-determination. In addition, they embody a number of other views held by more devoted academic anti-Zionists that are not held by many others in the BDS movement. One, that Israel is a fundamentally demonic, destructive, and anti-democratic country about which little or nothing positive can be said. Two, that Israel is perhaps the world's most extreme violator of human rights. Three, that there are no meaningful distinctions to be drawn between a given Israeli government and the Israeli people as a whole. Four, that distinctions about what is true or false can be set aside for purposes of political expediency. As a consequence, the publications tend to move beyond even strong political disagreement to cross a line into what often seems better understood as extreme hostility or hatred issued by university presses. That does not mean I'm claiming the people themselves are anti-Semites. You can adopt an anti-Semitic persona in what you write while maintaining Jewish friendships and seeing yourself as someone entirely without prejudice. Of course, that may involve considerable self-deception, but faculty are no less adept at that capacity than the rest of humanity. So there are 10 or 11 key features that I've found characterize anti-Zionist and anti-Semitic pseudo-scholarship. Not all these examples are equally weighted in all cases. With Judith Butler, her ideological fixations primarily take form of delusional philosophical and political formulations. With Jasper Puar, her system of invented political ideas is underwritten by a litany of alternative facts. While many of you no doubt assume facts like hers are not really facts at all, I doubt if many of you realize just how astonishingly counterfactual some anti-Zionist academic publications actually are. I set out to identify and present the definitive case that proves she and other key faculty enemies of the Jewish state live in an alternative universe, though one to which Duke and Chicago, as examples, the latter being the publisher of Critical Inquiry, conspire to lend credibility and influence. With these things in mind, let's just look briefly at the case against one of Jasper Puar's main arguments. My Puar chapter has sections on her other claims as well, including organ harvesting, but the case against her stunting claim indicates the nature of the problem with universities lending their prestige to what are irrefutably false and anti-Semitic theses. The first step was obviously to capture the medical and public health definition of childhood stunting, which is fairly straightforward, though Puar never cites it, namely 2 to 3 standard deviations from the norm in height for a given population. For moderate to severe stunting, 2 deviations moderate, 3 deviations severe. One may add that stunting, in effect, begins with inadequate nutrition during pregnancy. So if Palestinian children have been stunted, the mothers don't have enough to eat, and have inadequate vitamins supplied and so forth. The age range for which stunting is measured worldwide is 1 to 5 years. International and local health authorities agree that the threshold evidence for identifying stunting as a serious public health problem is when stunting is evident in 20% or more of the toddler population. It can have a range of consequences that include related health problems and even learning disabilities. So it's not just shortness of height, there are other problems as well. So when I started, I knew virtually nothing about the subject. I began with internet searches on stunting, then moved on to academic databases to obtain the medical and public health research publications around the world. I also began consulting public health faculty members in the US, Israel, and Palestine, who are cited no medical or public health literature on the subject. I cite, believe me, a lot of publications. It's obvious that neither Duke's readers nor the press staff, many of them acknowledged BDS supporters, insisted that scholarly research and public health data be cited. It's a scandal, and it's not unique. UNICEF, no friend of Israel, as I'm sure you're aware, and the World Health Organization are among the agencies that endorse the 20% threshold. They also maintain international databases on many health science problems and issue annual reports that update the information. Consulting those resources makes it immediately clear how serious a problem stunting is in some parts of the world, including sub-Saharan Africa and Southeast Asia. UNICEF data from 2016 includes these national stunting rates: El Salvador 20.6%, Vietnam 25%, Ecuador 25.2%, Philippines 33%, Indonesia 36.4%, Nepal 37.4%, India 38.4%, Ethiopia 38.4%, Zambia 40%, Pakistan 45%, Guatemala 47%, Madagascar 49.2%, Papua New Guinea 49.5%, Eritrea 50.2%, Burundi 57.5%. I'm not going to list anymore. I know you want to hear more, but the University of Washington maintains a database that includes current stunting rates and predicts them for the next 20 years. Current Middle East rates range from Kuwait 3%, Bahrain 3%, Saudi Arabia 6.6%, Qatar 7.3%, Jordan 8.2%, Tunisia 8.7%, UAE 10.9%, Algeria 11%, Oman 11%, Lebanon 12.2%, Libya 14.9%, Morocco 16%, Egypt 19.8%, Syria 23.4%, Iraq 24%, Yemen 44%. If the West Bank and Gaza are averaged together, the rate is 9%. Not 20% or not any of these other figures, but that includes a West Bank rate of 7% and a Gaza rate of 10%. This and much more are provided by an obscure search engine called Google, which Ms. Puar might have pretty easily consulted. In my book, I commented we have no way of knowing whether Puar learned any of this, but now I'm not so sure. Did she do no basic internet searches on stunting, which would give you everything that I've told you so far? Or did she choose to set aside the results in the service of her passionate anti-Semitism? Similar basic research questions hover over the work other university presses have published. When I was in Israel and East Jerusalem in 2018, I conducted a number of interviews to see whether UNICEF had been misled by its ferocious Zionism. I spoke with Dr. Assad Ramlawi, head of the Palestinian West Bank Health Services, and Dr. Yehia Hayat, who had administered relevant health services in Gaza. By then, I had several official Palestinian Authority reports that confirmed the international data. Abed was able to provide me with additional confirming data. They both confirmed as well that there was no shortage of food in either Gaza or the West Bank. In the US, where we are, by the way. 20% of children are considered food insecure because poverty limits their parents' ability to buy the food they need. And that problem obtains in Gaza as well, partly, of course, because of the Palestinian Authority's restrictions on the transmittal of money to Gaza. There's one obvious conclusion. If Israel is stunting and starving Palestinian children, it's doing an exceptionally poor job. The people in charge of stunting Palestinian children need to be fired, and some competent, aggressive people put in their place. But Duke University Press is doing a very good job of misinforming us about the facts and adding its imprimatur to this nonsense. One other matter absent from Puar's book, the other cause of stunting. Throughout the medical and public health literature are studies of the serious impact of consanguineous marriage, marrying your cousins, on stunting and other childhood health problems. So it's not just poor nutrition, it's genetic consequences of intermarriage. The rate of consanguineous marriage in Gaza is about 40%. It's not the only country for which that's true, but and the anti-Zionists don't talk about that issue. But actually there are Palestinian scholars and health authority who do, they're willing to talk about the truth. The main editor of Duke University Press is retiring and a search is underway for his replacement. But the anti-Zionist staff members will likely remain in place, and Duke is not the only university press with an anti-Zionist staff and a corrupt and unprofessional peer review process. The right to maim should be withdrawn from publication, but I'm not holding my breath. I certainly plan to send copies of the book to many people at Duke, whether it's published, and Rutgers, where she teaches. Of course, Puar's book has already received the National Award from the National Women's Studies Association. Still, I have 30-some thousand words about Jasper Puar, and I hope survival will be attenuated as a result. Some will attack the messenger. They can't very well dispute UNICEF, the World Health Organization, and the health authorities in Gaza and the West Bank, let alone numerous other confirming sources. I include in the book a much expanded version of an earlier essay about anti-Zionist teaching, and more importantly, there are a series of chapters designed to show that there are many positive and productive alternatives to the BDS project of demonization. I use the example of a course combining Israeli, Jewish, and Palestinian poetry to show how teaching can promote empathy and mutual understanding of the sort we need if the peace process is to move forward. Another chapter lists some 50 positive actions that should be taken by Israel and the international community to improve people's lives in Gaza and the West Bank, while strengthening Israel's security, so as to create an environment in which both peoples can see a two-state solution as a practical one, not just a slogan. I believe the effort to discredit faculty contributions to the BDS movement has to be accompanied by an affirmative vision offering political alternatives to the ones the BDS movement puts forward. So, not every reader will like that, but I wasn't seeking to make anything easier for anybody. The dual structure is in part of my work for many years. What was not clear to me when I drafted the first chapter in 2014 was the daunting level of work that would be required for me to address so many research areas, or how many different specialists I would need to consult just on stunting. You know, I have nutritionists in this country, 4 nutritionists in Israel, 1 on the West Bank, 1 in Gaza, and that's just one subject. So this is the work you have to do if you really want to be decisive. Had I known what lay ahead, I would never have dared undertake the anti-BDS part of the project that gained functional reporter-level expertise in nutrition studies, Israeli law, and other areas. I think the lesson for many of us in part is that it needs to be continuing in-depth work to critique anti-Zionist projects that get away with false claims because of the level of work required to rebut them thoroughly. The challenge of reforming university peer review for books and journals is still more daunting. though it will have to be grounded in the evidence-based analysis I've been describing. Can I shame Duke University Press by sending them copies of the book to see the real status of what they've published? I hope so. It should be possible for BDS publishers to find BDS sympathetic readers with higher evidentiary standards, or any evidentiary standards. I certainly have no trouble finding Zionist readers who want me to prove what I say and give me a hard time until they feel I've fixed an essay. But publishers will have to take this need seriously if it's to be met. A second line of defense against publishing mere propaganda needs to be established by hiring copy editors who make similar fact-checking demands. Where's the evidence? If the readers won't do it, a copy editor can. These projects we have not even seen begin. Thank you.